Welcome to your weekly astrological weather. This is your place to get practical guidance for not only surviving, but thriving with the cosmic tides. All right, well, hello everybody, and welcome to your weekly astrological weather. My name's Amanda Walsh. I'm the founder of Astrology Hub, and this week I am so happy to be here with astrologer, herbalist, and so many other things, like a true Renaissance man, Cameron Allen. Cameron has been featured on the Astrology Hub platform many, many times. If you're interested in hearing a little bit about his backstory and how he came to be practicing astrology and herbalism and so many of the other things that he does, you can go back to episode 138. We go into his story and you'll get to learn more about Cameron there. But for today, we're going to dive into the week ahead. Cameron, last week we had Michael Bryan on, and he said that, I know, we love him. He's one of your teachers for horary astrology, right?
Yeah, he's my teacher for horary astrology. He's taught me some different stuff with Renaissance astrology overall. He's also reminded me to be even more holistic than I already had it in my mind to be as well, So he's just an inspiration. I always tell him he's a genius, myself personally, and also he's my Iyengar yoga teacher.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Well, it's really nice to have you guys on back to back. So last week, what Michael said, the theme was honoring your personal contracts. So I don't know if this came up for all of you, if you were mindful of the kind of different contracts you had with people in your life, even your word as a contract. Maybe some of you were paying attention to your name and the contract that is coded into your actual name itself. So those were some of the themes we were exploring. Cameron, how does the cosmic curriculum unfold this week to complement that and bring us forward?
Yeah, so this week I was calling it commitment to your codes, but not even just commitment to your codes. It's moving into commitment of your codes, because essentially this week doesn't necessarily feel like, as far as the cycle that we're in right now, it's not like as if it has all landed quite yet. So it's like moving into it. And so it's really important to add that moving into it so that, it's like we don't feel the experience of it's here now or it's supposed to be happening right now. It's like we're still transitioning into the commitment of the codes and the landing of that energetic frequency that actually is.
Okay. So for people who are like, what do you mean codes? What are you even talking about? What do you mean by codes?
Yeah. So codes essentially to me are like the law of your energy, and the law of your energy is, and let's take a step back and talk about law for a second, because, we talk about how we have laws here, in the society I live in, right? I'm in the United States. So it's like we have laws, but these to me aren't actually laws. What they are rules. And the difference between laws and rules is that a law is like a compilation of energetic frequencies that are laid down that are actually just the truth. It's
like
the
natural law. Do you mean like a natural law?
Yeah? Exactly. A natural law, right? It's like gravity is going to be gravity no matter what. It's going to happen. And there's not somebody who can just be like, let's change this thing. Or let's rethink this. There's no rethinking law. Law is just laid down and it is what it is. Right. So whatever somebody's code is what they're naturally actually just are. And that can change depending on where you're at in time. But it's like whatever it is, you have to be in accordance with it because it is what it is. Like that's what the commitment to the code is.
So when you're saying that this is a week of moving toward our commitment to our code, you're saying, could that be basically like what's laid out in your astrological code? Is that something that we could see in our birth chart? And why are you saying that? Like based on the astrology, why are you saying that?
Got you. Yeah. Well, there's multiple layers. So yes, your birth chart. Yes, the transits. Yes, a bunch of other techniques I'm sure that could be used there, astrological techniques. However, this week is just, I'm looking at Saturn being square the nodes, and Saturn square the nodes, and it's in the moon, like the first day of the week, moon comes with it. And Juno is there with Saturn square the nodes. And so Juno has a lot to do with commitment. And Saturn has a lot to do with, being like having discipline, but I also have been like feeling into Saturn as being a disciple, and also Saturn's about like things crystallizing, right? And so you got Juno as the commitment, and then you kind of have like Saturn as the code, the energetic code. And it's energetic because it's in Aquarius. And Aquarius is about the energy or the blueprint, and Saturn's about crystallizing that, right? So it's like bringing that code in. And since it's square the nodes, it's just something that's, in evolutionary astrology, when something's square the nodes, it's this back and forth energy. Or, they say it's a skip step. And then other people formulate it as, well, you've done a lot of things moving forward, but you forgot a few things back here. So you have to go back and like retrieve that and bring it with you. So we have to be aware that we have to like be in this present moment to crystallize the codes. Yeah. So it's moving into it again. And also as well, Mars is in a balsamic phase with Saturn. And so since it's in the balsamic phase, it's an ending phase and it's about to start a new phase. That's why it's still about moving into it. And then Jupiter is in a balsamic phase with Neptune. And so these play a part as well, while I'm saying moving into, still moving into the commitment. Because there's things that have to be let go of because it's the ending of a cycle.
And would you say because it's a square to the nodes that we're going to be feeling some sort of tension around this as well? Like it's going to be something where we're feeling pulled in several different directions.
Yes, I always call it like a dynamic tension that's creating landings or change. Right? It's like whenever you come around a corner, you can feel it. Like even I used to, I don't know if I've said this before here, but I used to like run and like feel like different aspects. Like, what does it feel like to just run a trine? It's like you just kind of just running there, right? It's not really difficult. But when you're like running a square, like there's this dynamic tension, things have to change. And so that could be perceived as subjectively negative or subjectively positive, but things are changing and you can feel it.
Ooh, I love that. And that's one of the things that I love about the way that you practice astrology is it is so embodied. It's so like tangible. And I know we'll get to some of those things and different practices we can do with our bodies this week based on the energy, which is really exciting. I have other questions about Mars being in a balsamic. What does that actually mean? Balsamic with Saturn and Jupiter balsamic with Neptune. But let's go into the aspects of the week. And then if we have time to come back to some of those questions where you're telling us a little bit more about what those actually mean, then we can do that then. Does that sound good?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was actually more focused on those than like each day. So I'm excited to get back to those two as well.
Okay.
But March to 28th is where I started. And this is the biggest aspect to me personally, because you have Saturn, Venus, Juno, and the moon are all going to be at 21 degrees Aquarius, and that's going to be squaring the nodes. And that's what's the biggest thing of the week overall. Just setting that up. The context for the content is the fact that the nodes are in Taurus and Scorpio. And so with the nodes being in Taurus and Scorpio, a lot of things are going to be brought up around what has been deeply disempowering for us in the past. And then moving forward into the future with the North Node in Taurus, it's about what values are we creating or how are we grounding into how we relate to life moving forward. And Venus has for a while been what they call in traditional astrology besieged or enclosed. So she's stuck in between the two malefic planets of Mars and Saturn. And so that means moving forward, we've been actually having like some difficult tension, and we've been like being pressed on or put into the fire, any type of transformational process you can think of. That's what's been happening to all of us moving forward with who we're trying to become or our identity. And so now that's coming up to Saturn. And so there's more tension, more restriction potentially, or, depending on what you've been doing, it might just have been a container that's been being created that takes discipline, and you have to become a disciple of who you really are trying to be. How do you want to relate to yourself in the world moving forward? And then Juno being there as well is just bringing a commitment to that, right? And I always think about Juno as outside of the archetype, right, of just being like some wife or like some marriage commitment, because I feel like that's so limiting energetically speaking, right? And it's like, what are you actually committed to? And with Juno being in Aquarius, what I would invite people to be committed to is your unique electrical blueprint? Like, what is that like electrical signature that is actually you outside of when people see your face? It's like, if you came to someone in a dream and you were just a ball of energy, would they be able to taste that? Would they be able to feel that, right? That unique electrical imprint of you. Are you committed to that? Have you been creating a container and boundaries around that so that the way you relate to yourself can upgrade and move more in that direction? So that's what I would say about the 28th. And the moon's coming by it. So the moon coming by is literally like all these things are happening, and the moon is just like drawing it down to where like you can like really, really like feel it in your body moving through you. So I'll stop there for a second. And that's what I would say the 28th is about. And that's really, to me, what this like week is about. But really, I would even take it beyond the week, but this is my week. So I'm just going to say
that. Okay, Cameron, this is fascinating. So you're saying this on Monday, today is the biggest day of the week, and that we're having this square of the nodes, that basically the question is, what are you committed to? What is your unique electrical blueprint?
Mm-hmm.
And have you committed to that fully? And have you created a container, or have you created structures in your life so that you can actually live that fully? Would you also say that where is fear holding you back might be a good question, or where is some of those more Saturnian words, where are Saturn type things like fear holding you back, or limitations that you place on yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And limitations that groupthink brings in, because even with the Aquarius energy, it's like a lot of times groupthink does that to you, for you, with you, depending on how you want to orient towards it. You know, that's one thing I've been like really mindful about. It's like, how is that happening to you? Because some people think it's happening to them. How is it happening for you? Because some people think it's happening for you. Or how are you being with it? Right. And so we can say all three of those things so you have the invitation to feel into that for yourself, rather than me say one thing and you be electrically triggered or emotionally triggered by like how you might think you should receive that, which has been something that I've been feeling into as far as like a commitment to my code, right? It's like the law of saying what feels the truest for me and giving perspective so that people can feel into what shocks them into that code for themselves as well. But yeah, Saturn is going to bring it's since astrology is multivalent, so it's just like has multiple applications. The application of Saturn, when you press the button, if the application is working in a way that doesn't probably feel the greatest, it's going to restrict you. In the application where it feels like it's helping, you press the button and it just contains you and it holds you. You're creating space. And when you're creating space and defining your own reality, you have good boundaries. And when you're not, you're being enclosed upon, right? And so anytime anyone says anything about Saturn, they have to be both and, because the way I experience it is always going to be container. And the way that someone else might experience it may always make them feel repressed, oppressed, depressed, feeling like pressed in on. So
would you say if people are feeling that in their life, that they can identify the places where they are feeling sort of like some sort of external structure is oppressing them and limiting them, and to look at that and see how that could be reoriented? Like, how do you actually work with that? Because I know there's a lot of times, and a lot of people have been feeling this for the last couple of years, of feeling like really like there's external limitations placed upon us. How do you work with that very Saturnian feeling to bring it into the light, like you just described, of it more being a container and more being like a space in which you're meant to create or live?
Yeah. The first thing to do is, like, when you feel that pressure or things pressing down on you, understand that your life is being defined right now. And so since your life is being defined externally for you. And so what I invite people into first is awareness. Oh, I feel this thing pressing down on me, because sometimes people are being pressed down on and they're not even aware of it. So the awareness is the first thing, because also Saturn corresponds to mastery and ignorance at the same time. Right. And so if you're ignorant to it, then you can't master it. And if you're ignorant to it, then the reality is defining things for you. So you find the awareness. And once you find the awareness, you become the authority. You start writing your own authority, right? So it's the author. You become the author. Yeah, it's like that's what authority is. You're actually being the author of the reality. So you begin to define it yourself. And when you begin to define the reality for yourself, then you're creating the space and you're like actually allowing yourself to not feel repressed and closed in on as much, because sometimes just the definition of it itself is what's creating the containment, because you're not creating a container. So
Wow,
that's
Cameron.
what I would say. That's what I
Amazing.
would
Okay.
say.
Well, as you're speaking too, I'm thinking about diamonds and the process
Exactly.
that by which they're created. A diamond is a piece of coal that receives enough heat and pressure from the earth that it transforms itself into a very precious gem.
Yeah.
And that's essentially, that's taking that external pressure and actually transforming it into something very, very beautiful. As you're saying, your life is being defined when you're feeling pressed on. So are you going to
Yeah.
stay a coal, or are you going to turn into a diamond? Right. And
Exactly.
Cameron, the other thing I was thinking too, is when you're talking about this electrical blueprint and this question of, are you living your unique blueprint? And I was at dinner with a friend last night, and it was so powerful to have her reflect to me what she sees in me. Sometimes it's hard for us to even know, like, well, I don't know. Are you experiencing, am I living my unique electrical blueprint? I don't know, because it's almost sometimes like a fish trying to describe water, right? But to have someone outside of you that you trust and love and who sees you
Mm-hmm.
describe you to you could be a really interesting thing to do this week, because then it's like, okay, I can actually own more of that in myself, that thing that they see. It's like, oh yeah, that is true. I kind of take it for granted. I didn't even know that was unique, but awesome. And now I can own that even more fully.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, that's the commitment piece. You know, once you find out what it is, then you're like actually like grounding down into the commitment of it. And when you get down into the commitment of it, you also start to see how things in the past have made you feel disempowered, and how you will move away from that. You know, you'll fragment yourself from the codes that you know you're needing to bring in. So you'll just like leave a code over here or leave a code over there, you know. And that's also the same energy as Aquarius, because Aquarius is about fragmentation or coherence.
Wow.
You know, so that's pretty spot on, you know, and especially with Aquarius also being like opposite of Leo, you know, somebody else being the seer, or the person who's like, I see you, and you're like, wow, I'm unique and I can see it in this way. And then also, since it's multivalent, again, on the other side, when somebody's like, I can't see you, or I don't see you, and maybe I'm just giving you a little bit of attention, then you're like, well, let me put this part of myself over here, and this part of myself over here, and this part of myself over here, so that maybe, oh, can you see me now?
Oof.
You know, and you're not committed to your codes when you're doing that.
Right.
So,
Since you said we're in the process of committing to our codes, maybe this week we can think of it almost like a treasure hunt for those fragmented parts of ourselves that we have put on the shelf or hidden in the corners of the universe because we're afraid to actually be them, or they weren't accepted, or they weren't seen, and so we sort of put them away. It's like this process. I love this visual that you gave of the fragmentation, but then like we can actually pull those back in.
exactly. Yeah. And this always happens like after you go through the fire, or after something intense happens, which last week was kind of intense. You know, it's like there was like this Saturn Uranus thing going on. And so that's intense and it's volatile. And whenever things are intense and volatile, there's always a step or phase after it where there's either water being cleansing and washing it off, or like a crushing of it to bring like the material nature of it like to full form. I'm literally speaking about like the alchemical process right now with plants and
You
stuff.
are.
Like that's literally what goes. Yeah, it's like literally what happens. You just have to like, yeah, and you just knowing that process makes things easier, you know. And so the balsamic phase things I was talking about have to do with washing away, and then all these other things are more like crystallizing and like bringing it to like concrete committed coding.
Wow. All right. So this is Monday, and you're saying this is
Yeah.
is coloring the whole week. Are there any other aspects of the week though that you want to highlight and pull out for us to pay attention to?
Yeah, definitely. And also I want to say, just from a holistic health perspective, every single day the moon is somewhere, right? And so just like inviting people into a new process. So the moon on the 28th is in Aquarius. And there's also a lot of planets in Aquarius on that day. So how do your calves feel? Because Aquarius rules the calves. So the emotion or the energy in motion that is the moon is going through the calf region. And so check in with your calves. How do your calves feel? Stretch them out. Literally just pointing your toes hard as you can, pointing them as hard as you can, and then flexing them as hard as you can, flexing them as hard as you can, right? And the pointing of the toes, I mean, even though Pisces rules the feet, the pointing of the toes is to feel into the calves, right? The focus is actually the calf muscles. You wanted to just check in with them, right? If the moon represents nourishment and nurturing, what would happen if every single day you just, whatever the moon was flowing, you just nurtured that part of your body? Do that for a year, and I guarantee your whole body feels immaculately different. So that could be literally exercise like that, or it could just be, oh yeah, the moon's in Aquarius, oiling my calves and my shins. You know, and if you did that every single day for a year, your whole body would just be like immaculately juicy and amazing and lit. Yeah.
Whoa, that is what you just laid out is brilliant. I mean, that alone, that could be a practice that someone commits to experience vitality and health with astrology and the movement of the moon as the focal point for that.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. If like once people hit like level 4 of like mentee process with me, I become Saturn and they have to do it for at least 3
They
months.
have to do it. Amazing. I bet they end up loving it and carrying it on long after you're making them do it.
Yeah. Because after 3 months, it crystallizes.
Right. Okay, so we have the moon in Aquarius on Monday. Give some love to your calves. What else do we have throughout the week?
Yeah. And then so the 29th, the moon is in Pisces, and I didn't really highlight anything too much with the 29th because the 28th was so potent that I'm just like, okay, the moon's in Pisces, like kind of maybe go relax somewhere or let yourself flow or let go of as much as you can from whatever happened on the 28th. And also like either get a foot rub or rub your own feet. Also making sure that you like put your feet on the actual ground that day so that the energy, whatever's happening in all these integrated parts that are trying to come back online can like actually land in reality, right? As reality as your body, but also as your feet being on the ground and giving it something to like actually land into. So that's the biggest thing that I have going on the 29th is just like a rest and relax or integration day from the 28th. There was also something that happened on the 28th that I noticed that I forgot to talk about. And it was in astrology, there's this thing called Antiscia and Contra-Antiscia. And so on the 28th, the sun and Neptune are Contra-Antiscia. And so really what I would say is just think about it as the sun being opposed Neptune. And the sun being opposed Neptune, I always just feel into it as, And for me, I'm feeling it, the sun being like the light of awareness, and then Neptune either being illusions or disillusionment, and just allowing yourself to like feel the relationship between those two things. How am I being lit up, or what is being illuminated through how I'm dissolving, how I had this illusion in my life, and how am I just like letting that move, or what is my relationship with it? And that's just a question. It's not even something that I would go further into. It's just like ask yourself that question. How is disillusionment illuminating my reality? And so then, like I was saying, 29th, the moon is going through Pisces a bit there. And then on March the 30th, I specifically wrote down a time. I'm on Pacific time right now, so just letting people know that. But the moon is going to be like rising with Jupiter, and then Saturn's going to be in the 12th house on March 30th at 5:50 a.m. here in Los Angeles, California. And that's just a time that I was just like bringing in a meditation. And I already had it. Like I have a schedule where I just do like electional astrology, and I just elect times to meditate to see how they feel, so that when I do like magic later on, I just like know exactly what these experiences are going to bring me, or my relationship, just building a relationship with the energy. And so I'm just inviting everybody into that process with me. You know, the moon and Jupiter rising, like what does that feel like? And to have Saturn in the 12th house, and Saturn being in the 12th house means that it's in its joy, where it likes to be like have isolation, retreat, and it's a good time to like do a meditation. And so I'm just inviting everyone into that process, and even inviting them to come back and like in the comments below, like share with me, how did it feel, so that we can like interface and interact on that experience. So
Cameron, is
also
there a
in saying that,
specific time that you would invite people to do this meditation? Is there a specific time of the day, or just any time on the 30th?
yeah, it's 5:50 a.m. in where I'm at in Los Angeles, California. But it's going to be different. Yeah, it's going to be different for everybody depending on where they live.
Right.
But just like whenever the moon and Jupiter, it's going to be a few hours before sunrise, essentially, because right now the sun is in Aries. So that means it's going to be a house below. And then like Jupiter and the moon are going to be in Pisces. So it's a little bit above it. So it's going to be right before sunrise, right? It's going to be like a little bit before sunrise. So just feeling into that.
Where you are. No matter where you are, before sunrise. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're in Europe or Australia, or is there any
It'll still be a little bit before sunrise
on the 30th?
Because the relationship between the moon and Jupiter and the sun will still be the same.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, if somebody wants to tune into it, then they're actually going to have to just do the work to like figure out exactly what the time is if they want to. But other than that, yeah, that's all I can say. You know, just being mindful that the moon and Jupiter in Pisces, which is a sign right before where the sun is at in Aries. So it's not that far before sunrise, wherever you are on the whole planet.
And we're meditating on, it's a simple meditation on how the moon and Jupiter rising together feels, and how it feels when Saturn is in the exalted position of the 12th house, and just feeling what those feel like. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just an invitation to meditate on that and then to experience it directly. Mm-hmm. Instead of it being like me telling somebody what it is. It's like, well, go taste it. Because I can tell you what pizza tastes like, but have you tasted pizza? Yeah, so there's a difference between like me telling somebody what pizza tastes like and them actually like tasting pizza. So this is one of those experiences where I'm like, hey, go taste the pizza and like see what it feels like, and like get your hands dirty with it so you like know. Right? It's the difference between like, this is the molecular structure of the bacteria in the ground. It's like, okay, like let me just go pick up the soil and like feel it, you know? That's how we used to do it. And it's actually like a real thing. You can tell the difference because you're actually in relationship with it instead of intellectualizing it. And also in saying that the moon Jupiter energy, especially since it's going to be close to Neptune as well, will definitely be like an uplifting feeling. It will definitely be an uplifting quality that feels like it has some levity to it, and it could have even like an imaginal, dreamy kind of feel to it.
Love it.
And so
I love it. It's like when you were earlier talking about running the aspects and seeing how they actually feel, and using that as the way that you describe it, because you've actually felt it in your body. It's an entirely different experience. Perfect. Okay, so we're on the 30th now, and we're doing this group meditation. If you do remember to come back and leave a little chat about your experience with that, that'd be great. If you're in the inner circle, go ahead and post it in Mighty Networks, and we can talk about it there too. Cameron, what else do we have this week?
Yeah, also on the 30th, I just want to say that there's going to be another Contra-Antiscia, and this is the last Contra-Antiscia that I found that was highlighted for me, at least. It's Mars-Uranus Contra-Antiscia. So it's like the opposition of Mars and Uranus when we just had some Mars-Uranus stuff go on last week. So that stuff didn't actually go away, but the shadow of it can come up for you. Mm-hmm. So whatever what happened last week with the Mars-Uranus piece, it's not done and over with yet. So I just want you to reflect on last week, what happened when that occurred, and then come back into that day and then feel into it again.
Cameron, what day last week was that?
I forget, to be honest, because I don't really keep up with dates and like I try to keep it more broad.
Do you remember if it was the beginning, the middle, or the end of the week at least?
I think it was the beginning.
Okay, that just might help people remember what was happening for them.
Got you. Yeah. I don't remember, to be honest. Yeah.
I love hearing that, because there's so many different ways to practice astrology, and there's so many different ways to move with astrology, and not everybody does it the same way. And all of you astrologers have your own way that you're working with it. And it's important for us to hear that, because I think sometimes people think there's just one way, and then it's like, well, that way doesn't really work for me. Are there any other ways? And so it's
Absolutely.
nice to
Absolutely.
be exposed to a lot of different methods, in a
Oh
purpose.
yeah, 1000%. Yeah. Cause I mean, there's literally, well, there's others like things that I use as far as like systems of understanding self. And so literally just sometimes there's just these people who need to like be more broad and feel and experience versus people who need to like analyze, have the data. It's like, actually it was at 3:57 last week on Wednesday. It's like some people that's their jam. And I'm like, hey,
Right.
like, no, just know if that's your jam.
Yes.
And if it's not your jam, then don't like try to fit yourself into that. But like you can still lean into it. So yeah,
Right.
1000%.
Love
Yeah,
it. Okay. So
absolutely.
now we're on to the 31st, right?
31st. Yeah, and the new moon on March 31st is in Aries and it's conjunct Chiron. I mean, it's conjunct Chiron, and that's what I highlight, but it's also conjunct Mercury. Mercury's conjuncted as well. And there's a few pieces there for sure. So even just the moon is, I mean, the sun is blocking out not only the light of the moon, but it's also blocking out the light of Mercury, and it's also blocking out the light of Chiron. So that's something to be mindful of, because when you're trying to commit to your codes and like your energetic sensitivity could be blinded. You could like not see it, or it could just be something that you experience internally, right? There's two different manifestations that I've observed. And the same thing is happening with the moon. The same thing is happening with Mercury, right? You can't see how these words are making you feel sensitive inside and how that's actually making you feel. So this also could bring like a potential of people projecting out like way easier, because the light of the sun is blocking the words and like how we're mentally organizing things, and it's blocking our energetic sensitivities, and it's blocking our emotions and how the energy is moving. And so all those things might be experienced as being in the background. And since I'm saying it right now, you can be more aware of it, and you can be aware of it in the way of other people's experience of it. And it also can teach you more about how the sun blinds things or like keeps things covered as well. And since it's in Aries, again, it's something new that's starting. So again, we're talking about moving into. And since we're talking about moving into, that means we're going somewhere in a new direction inherently. And going somewhere in a new direction means that we have to sever ties from the old. And Aries season is always, always, always about that. It's always about severing ties from the old and moving towards the new. And when we're moving towards the new, we don't know what to do. And that's always going to be the case. However, through the awareness of astrology, I've come to realize like actually sometimes we do know what to do. But it's still difficult sometimes because we actually have to be there in the present moment to experience it. Right. And so when you're moving forward, just be really, really mindful that there might be things still pulling at you, and you have to sever ties from those things because we're moving away from them. Sometimes moving forward has more to do with making sure that we cut off the old ties than it does like actually going somewhere forward. Because if you got a bunch of baggage, you ain't going nowhere fast. You got to let go of that, sever ties with it, and be able to attune yourself to what's going on.
It sounds like when you say when we're going somewhere new, we don't know what to do, but then actually you're seeing that with the help of astrology, a lot of times we do know what to do.
Yeah.
It sounds like we just have to trust that we know what to do, that those things that we're like, I feel like this is where I'm supposed to go, or it seems like this is what's happening, or, I don't know why, but I know I just need to do this, whatever it is, let something go or take some sort of action, just trusting that those feelings in you are guiding you in the right direction.
Exactly. And even sometimes not knowing what to do is knowing exactly what to do. And what I mean by that is when people feel like they don't know what to do, then they hesitate and they think and they get lost or caught up in, things like that. Whereas like sometimes I don't know what I'm doing and I do it. It didn't mean I knew what to do, but I knew exactly what to do. Right. It's like I didn't like intellectualize it or like, oh yeah, that's right, I should do this thing. It's like, we ain't doing that no more. Like something can come up and it's like I could have a pattern and I've been doing that and I've been doing that. And then something happens and I'm like, that's a hell no for me. Not doing that no more. And like, oh dang, I didn't even know that it was time for me to do that. It's a happening. But that's what happens when we're moving in that new direction. It could just happen like that, So it's, I my Gemini moon mind does this thing where I'm like, we don't know what to do, but we do know what to do, even though we know what we're doing and we're doing it. It's like, and And it's
No,
like the
true, I
polarity
didn't.
of it, but it's like that's actually how like the reality's working, you know?
Yes, it's I often think about that with Astrology Hub. You know, people will say, "Well, how did you know how to build the company?" And I'm like, "Well, I didn't know." I'd love to say I had this like perfectly planned business plan that we've just
Yeah, yeah.
executed over the last 7 years, and that's just not true. We have literally felt our way through. Okay,
Mhm.
what's the right next step? What is the thing that? And sometimes you make mistakes, but that mistake was actually also knowing what to do because you needed to learn from that mistake.
Exactly.
So my Gemini
Yeah.
moon is absolutely tracking with you, and hopefully
Yeah.
everybody out there is too. Okay, so we have this new moon in Aries and Chiron.
Mhm.
Watch for projections. This is something new starting, and I love what you said about sometimes when something new starting, that just means even more than anything, we're letting go of old things so that there's space and new direction. And when you were saying that, I imagined a hot air balloon
Mhm.
and how the way that you go up in the hot air balloon, yes, there's the hot air, but you also have to let go of the weights.
Exactly.
And when you let go of the weights, then you go up in the air. So it sounds like we're in that kind of a process here around this new moon in Aries. I just also want to clarify, it's March 31st and or April 1st, correct? Depending on where you are in
Right.
the world.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because I had that little thing I had to figure out because I've been writing monthly forecasts. So yeah, it's either or on those days.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
All right. So then that brings us into April 1st, April Fool's Day.
Yeah, and before we go to April Fool's Day on March the 31st, with the moon in Aries, just being mindful to maybe give yourself a head massage. And the head massage is going to be more close to the top of the head rather than just the head in general. It's like more like from the crown probably to like the hairline region, just because it's closer to the beginning of Aries. And so just like giving yourself a head massage, or even like sometimes I like to, this is one of my like moon Aries things. I just like lay my head off the edge of the bed and let the blood rush there, right? Like let the energy and move there, and then I like pick it up and I get that like kind of like that woozy feeling. Kind of, I just like to play with that sometimes. That could be like a nice feel to it, or shampoo your hair that day, or something where you're just like more consciously bringing some like motherly energy towards that region of the body.
Mm.
Yeah. And watch out for like losing your head when the moon's in Aries as well, right? Like you don't want to lose your head. So even when you're like rubbing it, like it brings you back in and it doesn't let the energy become too volatile as well.
Very good. I love these body practices. This is
They're so
awesome.
good.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
Okay. And April Fool's Day even has an astrological history. Are you aware of
Oh.
that one?
No, I didn't know about
Christopher
that. Tell me
Renson taught
more.
us this. Yes, because
Oh yeah.
okay, wait, I'm not gonna get all the places right and everything, but I'm just gonna give the broad view of what he said.
Mm-hmm.
That the new year used to be celebrated around the Aries new moon after the equinox. And then one of the kings, King Gregory or one of them changed it to January. And but not everybody got the memo. So
Mm.
if you were still celebrating New Year's on April 1st, you were a fool. So they called you
Mm.
that's where April Fools comes from. And then there was something about tricks that they would play on those people too. But this is it also has an astrological history, and Christopher would tell the story so much better. Christopher, I'm sorry if you're listening to this. Maybe we could do a little video on it because it's actually fascinating
No, that's
to
cool.
hear about that. So, all right, so we're
Mm.
on April 1st. Tell us about
Yeah.
that day.
Yeah, April 1st, there's the sun. I mean, Chiron Cazimi is on that day. And so that means Chiron goes into the heart of the sun, which is like a really interesting thing to feel into. It has been for me, is what I really would say. And so I can only talk about my experience with Chiron Cazimi rather than what a collective experience would be, because that's all I know currently. And nobody has really taught me about what Chiron Cazimi should mean. And so Chiron being about energetic sensitivity, but also being like a coach, a mentor, and like also tools coming into like the heart of the sun, which the heart is represented by the sun. So it's like you're in the heart of the, you're always in the inner chamber. And so like being mindful of that and like feeling into what is compassion, And what does it feel like to be compassionate when you're just like in your inner chamber of your heart? And what does that call forth from you? You know, and if you feel into what that calls forth from you, then that also will be assisting in like the weekly thing about the codes, you know, because whatever that calls forth from you, you'll be attuned to it in a way where no one can tell you anything outside of the law that you exist within. So that's what I'm feeling into for that day. And that's what I've consistently over the past 3 years experienced when the sun has been Cazimi, Chiron. And so that's my invitation for people to feel into that.
And Cazimi means perfectly aligned, right? Like Chiron's like behind the sun perfectly.
There's different definitions. So usually I try to work. When I'm trying to learn what it feels like for me, I try to stay within the rule that is 17 minutes away from.
Oh, okay.
Like literally 17 minutes. You know, as far as like astrologically, which is going to be more than actually 17 minutes because it's the sun and Chiron. But so 17 minutes away from each other. And then there's other definitions that it's 1 degree away from it. So that if we use the 1 degree rule, then it would have been Cazimi at some point the day before a little bit. And it would just been like a more intensification period, right? Where it's like 1 degree on each side, but then like you get to the 17 minutes and then you hit like this other experience of it. And then the exact point is just like another, like, it's like essentially those two things are one thing. They're fused together so much. And then you like move into a new experience of it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any body practices on this day?
I'm going to do a bunch of heart openers, and I'm going to be probably really erratic and furious about it personally. So I'm not really inviting other people to do this, but I'm just going to be doing like a lot of spinal flexes as well, because the sun represents the spine, and I'm trying to let the divine energy come into my spine a lot more on that day and feel into like these other energetic attunements that have almost anything to do with astrology that I've been working with. And so just a lot of working with your spine. So yeah, that's what I would say. And also, how energetically sensitive is your spine? You know, that's a question that I would ask with Chiron and the sun, Cazimi too. And you can find out really quickly how sensitive your spine is just by, okay, Cameron, do it. Okay, cool. So all you have to do, and I'm pretty sure I've taught this in a class, in a course before here at Astrology Hub, but it's just a spinal wave. You know, it's like really simple where you go up against the wall, and my hand is the wall, if that's not obvious. And you just put your nose to the wall, then you put your chin to the wall, then you put your chest to the wall, then you put your stomach to the wall, then you put your pelvis to the wall. And by the time you do that, you see my head is back, and then you go again. And then nose, chin, chest, stomach, pelvis, and then you go again. And then you start doing it. And then sooner or later, you'll just be like out here in these streets, you know, like, and your spine will like, you'll feel like how sensitive your spine is, and that'll allow energy to move through you with more fluidity. And you'll be more attuned to like what's going on in your body, in your experience, but also like outside of you. And that's something that I've used as a gateway to like have more empathy and compassion, but also not like be overloaded or flooded. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, I feel all this energy. And it's like, well, they can't even move their spine. So the energy is not flowing correctly. Wow. And so that could be problematic. But if the divine spine is like moving and it's aligned, then like everything's just going to be flowing good. You're going to be attuned to what's going on around you. And yeah, that would be what's up. Yeah, that's overgeneralized, but like, that's what I would say about it.
Thank you for doing that. That was such an awesome visual. And I can see why it's so powerful. I mean, I always think of the spine as almost like it's like our tuning fork, or like the place where we like can receive the messages and transmissions and downloads. And you're right, when we're blocked and when it's rigid and we're less able to actually receive intelligence and wisdom. And so I love that. And when you said heart openers too, some people might not know what that is, but one of my favorites is with a bolster, or like a pretty firm pillow, you know, putting a mat down, putting a bolster or a pillow down, and just opening up your heart and allowing your arms to, you know, go out on either side of you, and just feel that heart open feeling. And
Absolutely.
make sure that you're in a place where you feel safe enough to do that. And that's true in life in general, right? We open our hearts when we're in a place or in situations where we feel like we can do that safely.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, like when a cat rolls over and like show you its belly, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, another heart opener could be just like going to Venus lock, but behind your back. So you just take your hands and then go into Venus lock behind your back, and then you just press down and lift up, and then just breathe into your chest. That could be a really simple one to do.
Did you just call that Venus lock?
Oh yeah, that's the Venus lock right there. When you just do that. Yeah, that's what they call it. Yeah.
Why do they call this Venus lock?
Actually, I don't even know. We do that in Kundalini yoga. They call it the Venus lock. I actually haven't even explored that. I have like this list of things that I need to learn, but like how the astrology and the Kundalini yoga and yoga practices in general go together, but I haven't gotten there yet. But yeah, they call it the Venus lock.
If anybody knows in the audience, please write in. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So that would bring us then to April 2nd.
Yeah, April 2nd is the day that Mercury actually goes Cazimi. And so Mercury Cazimi is, this one feels really, really good. There's even a specific time that I found on this day as well. But Mercury Cazimi, I just think of it as bringing the mind back into the heart where it belongs. Or even like thinking of it as thoughts rather than just the mind, bringing our thoughts in alignment with our heart, right? That the Mercury and the sun coming together. Because Mercury can never go too far from the sun, because that's how it actually works. Like our thoughts can never run too far astray from our heart. You know, it's not even really possible. So every time it comes back, we're infusing our thoughts back into our heart center. And so even though I didn't talk about it before, also in saying that, that means Mercury has been combust for a while too. Well, I did talk about that with the blinding, you know, Mercury being blinded by the sun. And so just knowing that that's a thing. And so the Cazimi is just a point where it's like at the still point or the eye of the storm, where it's like, oh, my thoughts are like finally fully centered in my heart and I can experience this. And then after that, it like goes combust again to be purified. So that the thought process can become anew.
I think a few weeks ago, we talked about how thoughts centered in the heart is the definition of wisdom.
Beautiful. I love that.
Lots of wisdom available then. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that deeply.
Any practices for that particular day?
I do like the specific like combination of Kundalini and pranayama practice when it comes to Mercury Cazimi, and I'm not going to share that one. That one's mine.
Okay. All right. You can keep it, Cameron. You've been so generous with everything else. All right. Okay. So what do we have on April 3rd then?
On April, to go back, so April 2nd, the moon will be in Aries, and then it'll be like moving to Taurus. So it'll be in both places. And so on whenever the moon transit goes from one to another, I always just like incorporate like so Aries is ruling like from the upper teeth up. And then from there down to like the neck region is Taurus. So usually I just would do like some exercises of like poking in like between my upper teeth and my lower teeth. I might do like gua sha that day a lot, like extra gua sha. I don't know if people know what a gua sha is, but you can take a spoon.
Oh, a spoon works, yeah?
Cold spoon is really nice there. You just do the back of the spoon and you just kind of like go back and then you get in there. Yeah, it could be really nice for that because the moon, the energy will be there and you'll be able to feel it more tangibly because the moon is transiting that area. And then you also do it on the neck. You know, usually it'll probably be like the upper neck because the moon isn't going too far into Taurus. So just kind of like in the underneath part of the neck, like around here is what I would do. Or like kind of like, I mean, everybody doesn't have an Adam's apple, but I would say from my Adam's apple up is kind of where I would do it at. So just working like this whole area.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And you could just massage it too, you know, even the first few cycles you do of the moon cycles with the body, you can just literally, the first go around could just literally be an assessment or like as we say, an introduction or like just introducing yourself. Hey, I haven't talked to you and I have not been conscious about this like almost ever. Like, what's up? You know, like tell me something. You know, because sometimes too, when we come to like new practices, when it has to do our body, people are like, am I doing this right? And I'm like, well, what did you feel? Like, dude, does it feel right? Does it feel wrong? And like, just start there. Please start there, everybody, because if not, then you will lose autonomy over your body and your choices with your body sooner or later. And so just, you need to know that. It's important to know that.
It's so loving what you're describing. It's really, it's like love in motion and directed towards our own bodies. And so many times I think of love as awareness and attention. It's like if we're not paying attention and we're not aware of, then it's how are we loving that person or this part of ourselves?
Yeah.
So I just love this. This is so much fun. And I hope that you all experiment with it and play with it and see how it feels. And like Cameron said, don't worry too much about doing it right or wrong. Just experience it and see how it feels, just for the fun of that, just for the play of that.
Yeah. And, you know, when you do this, this is all coming back to the codes too, because when you know how that feels, like, you know, the energy will just start moving through your body and you'll be like, oh, this didn't feel like that yesterday. Or like, you'll have so much space in your body. You'll be caring for yourself so much. Somebody says something, that's a hell no. I already know it, because the energy moving through me, I take care of it. I nurture it so much that it's like, no, something's going on here. You know, I could walk into a room and then leave and be like, like I cough and I'm like, what's going on here? Like, this feels weird. I don't feel nourished. It didn't bring like this like juicy divine nectar into my reality. And I can feel the like leaking of my soma, you know, and it's just like not a good thing. So
it also sounds to me like a practice of cultivating intuition and inner knowing, and how valuable that is, because that is only you can know what's right for you in any given moment. And having that real deep level of awareness with how things feel in your body is such an important compass for that.
yeah, it's so important, especially in the space and time reality that we're in, especially when we've been taught not to feel, we've been taught not to trust our intuition, and people are like very, very intuitive people, and people who know what they know, but then they doubt it, or they like, even the amount of intuitive people that I've met in my life that have said something about like feeling or being crazy. It's like, it's just very clear that we haven't been validated or taught that it's okay to just feel what we feel and know what we know, because it doesn't have to be, it doesn't even have to be something that's concrete for the rest of your life. If you know something in this moment and you feel that energy moving through you, that's just what it is. You don't even have to rationalize it. You can, if that's something that's coming through and you're supposed to create a business out of it, then yeah, you have to sooner or later. But you can just be with how that energy feels and like how it's moving. And you don't have to go outside of yourself. You actually would do better probably to go inside of yourself and tune into that.
I love this so much. Cameron, I think part of what I love so much is that you're modeling it with your life and helping other people feel free to just be that in their own way. It's like, you know, here you are, this beautiful man who's like so in yourself, just being it unapologetically and encouraging everyone to do that. And it's really powerful. So thank you for committing to your unique electrical coding, because I think when any of us do that, it's like keys that unlock locks for other people, because it's like,
1,000%.
wow. And we don't have a whole lot of models, especially not of men like you, just really owning this very, quote unquote, feminine aspect of yourself, this like feeling, knowing, intuiting, sensing, receiving, not needing to rationalize or make logic out of it, just being.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
beautiful. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That alone is so valuable for this hour that we spent together. So thank you for that. Plus everything else you've shared.
Yeah.
Okay. April 3rd.
Cool. April 3rd, I'm just feeling into the moon Uranus conjunction in Taurus. And with that, Taurus, Yeah, it just makes me feel like I'm in my body. And, I do correspond, like have this, the relationship of Uranus with Aquarius and how it's a co-ruler of it. So this is also going to have something to do with like your unique energetic blueprint as well. And just like really getting into your body and feeling what is that and like what is it of value that it brings in. Also, like in this present moment of as in when the moon comes to Uranus and Taurus, what is it about your personal genius or that electrical blueprint that you need to like feel into to like put actual effort towards? Just thinking about Taurus being the slowest sign pretty much in the zodiac. Essentially, it's like it's slow for a reason because it's taking its time and it's putting consistent effort into things, and it's the energy of perseverance. And also being mindful, since the moon's come in there, it's like, where are you feeling like you're being lazy? Because a lot of people like try to push against Taurus being correspondent to laziness, but I don't understand why people dislike that, because it's the slowest energy. So if something's really, really slow and not going at the speed it might be ideally going at, then it's being lazy. It is. And I just invite people to like know that that's fine. It's fine for something to be lazy. It's fine for something to feel lazy, and also be able to look at that in the face, because if you can look at it in the face, then you can actually tell yourself, hey, I'm being lazy. Or you can say, oh no, I'm actually just lounging and relaxing in my bliss. And this feels really good and it feels really yummy. And actually, I don't even want to go get the remote. Hey, baby, come get the remote. It's like you're right by the remote. But hey, you might just feel that way sometimes. And that is what it is. But if you can't acknowledge the difference between being lazy and like actually just feeling like luxurious and wanting to lounge, you'll never know what's really true. And that's also a part of the codes, like being able to like, what is the law here? What is like actually occurring here? So, yeah.
Cameron, I'm laughing because my partner, is a Taurus sun, Taurus rising, Mars and Taurus.
Yeah.
And he has recently helped me implement what we're calling a quote unquote fluff day.
Yeah.
And it's based off this interview that we read from Marilyn Monroe. And she, in this interview, described her day and how she wakes up. And it's so inspiring because she's just like, I just wake up when I feel like it. And I just roll around in bed for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Then I might do some stretches. And then eventually I'll have my milk and my egg. And it makes me laugh so much because it's so adorable. And it was just so like, I just move through my day the way, obviously she's a very accomplished person. I mean, she accomplished a lot, but she also knew and appreciated what it's like to just luxuriate. And
Exactly.
so this is now, I have my fluff day on Saturdays where my only job in life is to luxuriate. And it's amazing. It's like I've probably had 4 of them so far, and it's just like, oh my god, why haven't I been doing this my whole life? But
Exactly.
I'm a mom with 2 children, and I'm running a business, and I'm it's a million excuses. But finally, he helped me like prioritize it and make it happen. But I'm laughing because it's the Taurus energy that knows how to do that so well, and is teaching the Capricorn, who's working really hard, how to like stop for a moment and just be. And it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so important, especially in this space and time where like productivity, and then even Cameron, should you do? Okay, cool. Okay, so also like productivity, and then also like what people would like call, I don't know if I've said this on here before, but like people call like toxic masculinity, it's like, it's literally just overdoing, it's literally because, and when I say masculine energy, it's like not about actually men, even though it's reflected and corresponded to men oftentimes. It's just actually the principle of masculine energy, which is up and out, do, work, make a picture, like seem like cohesive in one, and like figure it out. It's like when you do that so much that you actually aren't feeling the best, that's when you're like leaning towards toxic masculinity. And so that also would, that type of energy being exalted or people like praising it would also damn the Taurus energy of being able to relax and rest and be luxurious and be fed and just like relax and chill, So it's important for us to like be able to acknowledge all those things, the whole spectrum, you know, which is something it's part of me like coming into my codes of like being able to say, look at this, look at this, look at this and this and this and that. Can you not confront all these things? Can you not even consider them? Because if you can't, then like you're living from a place of being like a reflex. You're not really living in your codes, you know?
Yes.
So yeah.
So good. Okay. Any sort of thing that we need to be doing for this moon in Taurus? I mean, aside from luxuriating and lounging.
Yeah, I would do something luxurious. And if you have the financial resources to buy yourself something extra luxurious too. Yeah, do it, you know.
Do it on that day, Sunday.
Yeah. Even if it's something super simple, like you usually don't get the extra bougie version of the coconut water. Sometimes that's like my thing, you know. It's like the coconut water is usually like the extra bougie version of the coconut water, like the pink coconut water that's like $10. Like, why is this coconut water $10? I don't understand, you know, versus like the coconut water that's the same size and it's like $4 or $3. It's like, but just do it, you know. It could be that simple or it could be something way bigger, you know. That's all like on the context of the content of everybody else's lives.
I love it. Cameron, thank you so much. Is there anything else about the week that you want us to know about or anything we should be aware of?
Yeah, I want to go back to those balsamic phases and the letting go stuff, you know, because Mars is always, you know, I'm always thinking about Mars and like, what are we cutting away from that's like releasing us, like you were saying with the hot air balloon. And so since and also just Saturn and Mars are in Aquarius, everybody. So just be mindful of those two malefic energies. And if you have any issues with your heart or your circulation, you want to pay closer attention to that. So just, be mindful of those things because the opposite is Leo. And then since Saturn and Mars are in Aquarius, it's going to affect that through like a reflex, you know, the signs being together. So I just have to say that, period. But yeah, so Mars coming into a new phase with Saturn, even though it's not going to come into the new phase in my week, so it's going to be in a balsamic phase. So in what ways have you been feeling like you can't create boundaries around things and like you need to get rid of that? Like you just need to stop not creating the boundaries. What do you need to let go of to do that? You know, just think of all the things you need to let go of to do that. Super simple. Because it's the balsamic phase. So it's like coming into a new phase. When you think of the new phase, usually we're talking about the new moon. Oh, it's the new moon. It's like we've released everything and we need to set a new intention. Boom. Set a new intention or get ready to set a new intention of your relationship between Mars and Saturn, the structure of your life, how you like, what are you a disciple of? How have you been disciplined or lack thereof? And like, how are you going to start asserting your energy towards that? So right now you're just asserting your energy towards getting rid of what needs to go away before you start a new cycle with that. And so, and it's really important. And also be mindful, since they are two malefics, the malefics are destructive and destruction isn't a problem. We destroy whatever we need to. When you're eating food, you destroy it so you can break it down. You can get rid of it. You know, when you graduate from high school, you destroy your high school relationship, even though you're not really like, oh gosh, I'm destroying my relationship with high school. You're destroying it. You're changing it. You're making it different. So just also being mindful of the malefics not having to be, oh, they're malefic. Yeah, they are. They want to get rid of stuff and they want to create boundaries, and it doesn't feel good for people. And that's
Cameron, I think it's the conditioning we have that when we let something go and when we make space for something new and we quote unquote destroy it, like you're saying, there's some program that tells us we need to make that thing wrong or bad. And we need to, like, I don't know if it's a protective mechanism to sort of, you know, justify it by focusing on all the things that were wrong about it or that didn't work about that person, or instead of just a healthy, like, it is time to move on. Sometimes you don't even know why. It's just, I'm being called in this direction. It doesn't mean you're wrong or bad or anything. It just means this is where I need to go. And I think that that's something that we can really, oh, are you frozen or were you frozen? Okay. I just think that's something that, that we can be aware of, that in this severing and quote unquote destruction, we don't have to make the thing we're leaving bad.
Yeah. Don't have to make it bad or wrong. Yeah. I agree 1,000%, you know, and you know, the malefics, they just are extreme. They just create extreme conditions. Whereas Venus and Jupiter are like they're warm and moist, and they're like, that's what creates life in general, you know. But out in the desert, there's not that many things because it's like extreme. And in the Antarctica is super cold, and that creates an extreme. So that's also like people have issues with like going to these extremes. So when you're cutting something off, you're like having intemperate heat so you can like release it, you know? And sometimes that doesn't feel the greatest. So people make it bad or wrong or blah, blah, quack, quack. You know, it's like, but you know, that's just people's relationship with the malefic energy of reality and life. And that's not my business, but it is in my codes to name it.
Nice. I love it. That's not my business, but it's in my code to name it. I think it's so cool. Oh my gosh. Cameron, thank you so much. For any of you who just fell in love with Cameron in the last hour, and you want to learn more from him, and you want to learn more of his approach and this really holistic approach that incorporates the body, incorporates health, and really is very integrated. If you're interested in studying more with him, we do have 2 classes that we produced with Cameron. There's Astrology Hub. There's the Health Secrets of the Planets, and there's Health Secrets of the Zodiac. Both of them are awesome. One of them is a mastery class, and one is an actual course. So if you want to check those out, you go to astrologyhub.com/planets, and that's the mastery class. So that's a shorter, like 2-hour experience. That could be a great place to start. And then if you love that, then going to astrologyhub.com/zodiac is where you're then going to go into health secrets of all the zodiac signs and learning about those. And that is a 5-week course, correct, Cameron?
I think it's just a self-paced. It's self-paced, and it's about just each zodiac sign gets approximately like an hour 15 minutes of just like going through all the correspondences and like learning it from not just a perspective of personality traits, but nature, plants, embodiment exercises, crystals, the psychology, the spirituality, the physiology, et cetera, et cetera. So it's amazing, honestly. I really love that one.
They're both amazing, and we have incredible feedback from all the students who have taken those classes. So check it out. Okay, so just a reminder again, that's astrologyhub.com/planets or astrologyhub.com/zodiac. Cameron, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much. You just brought in like a very different energy to the weekly weather, and it's so fun to experience. So thank you for that. Thank you for, like I said before, for really owning and embracing and modeling what it means to live the theme of this week, which is to really commit to our unique code. So thank you for that. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. Thank you for making astrology a part of your life. We're so grateful for you. You enable us to do this work. You enable us to immerse ourselves in the astrology and then get to share that with all of you. And we love it. So thank you for being here. Thank you for loving it as much as we do. And I can't wait to connect with you again on the next episode. Take care, everybody.